what's up, dude? It's Joshua J. Today I want to talk about adding to your visual library, and a lot of these things are about training your subconscious mind to be able to see things in a certain way, and eventually you start to naturally see things in a certain way. When your visual library evolves and it turns into just a way that you naturally see the world. And a lot of the ways of adding things to your visual library is, so theoretically it helps you solve problems and find solutions to the different things in your art that you need to solve because you know how they work in the real world. A lot of ways of adding to your visual library is when you kind of want to pull reference from the real world, because a lot of art is basically like an interpretation, and it's derived, and the source of it comes from the real world. So it comes from what already exists, and then we take from it and we can interpret it however we want to. And in that way you kind of take what is already real and you can apply it to whatever your creative mind wants to try and take on. And it helps you come up with solutions, and it gives you answers for creative solutions as well. So these are kind of your art workouts. So adding stuff to your visual library is a way of working out your art brain, working out your art muscles, and kind of getting them fit and getting them ready to create, and just getting them understanding a lot more as well. And great things to do when adding to your visual library is drawing from life. Number one, that is probably the best thing you can do, drawing from real life. I do a lot of painting from real life, like gouache painting, and I'll go out and like find a scene and draw from real life. And it's not even so much the artwork. I mean, it's just my training wheels that it's just training. I'm not really like, I don't mind to show that to anyone, or I wouldn't really put it on my portfolio, but I just know it's influencing the rest of the art that I do. And as long as I know that like deeply, then I know that what I'm doing it's adding to me, it's helping me evolve as an artist. And adding to your visual library like that, doing those type of studies, drawing from real life is a second great thing. Drawing people's faces, realism faces, and poses and buildings and little things that you can find, flora and fauna and mechanical things. These are great to draw because then you understand the real thing, and then it starts to get fun and creative when you can take your understanding of the real thing and you're like, okay, I understand this thing really well. Now I'm going to try and translate it into interpretation of how I want it to look. And material studies is another really great one. Material studies are great for adding to your visual library. Like painting like skin texture or metal or wood or scales or fur. All of I should actually probably do some more on this channel. I've done a few before, but I think I can definitely do a whole lot more. That would be great to just walk through. And it's really fun getting into these things, because when you say you're painting fur, you only have you give yourself like an hour and you're like, okay, I've got all my reference here of real life fur, and I'm really going to understand how fur works. And that's what it's about when you're talking about your visual libraries. You letting yourself figure out how things work. And it's nice to actually flow into it's really simple. You're drawing fur, you're looking at your reference here and you're drawing it there, and it's great, because then you realize afterwards, I really understand fur. Now it's like, okay, how can I take this and apply it? And that's why all the master artists, they always go back to the fundamentals, because you can never do enough fundamentals. I could never draw enough faces, I can never draw enough hands, I can never draw enough poses and figures, and just adding lighting exercises. I can never do enough of those, because they just add to the solidity and the strength of my visual library. And another great thing for studying anatomy that is great for drawing figures and humans is studying toy parts, because they really break it down to the most simple forms. You literally have just the shape of the forearm, or just the shape of the hand, and you realize like how they piece together and fit together and how they maneuver together. That's for anatomy, but the same type of theory kind of applies to different aspects as well. Like lighting, understanding how lighting works is one of the most fundamental things to add to your visual library, and you can never study enough of it because different light interacts differently with different objects, and different surfaces like reflective surfaces and diffuse surfaces and things like that. And at the same time, when you're adding to your visual library, you want to be like quite picky with what you internalize. Say for example, studying from real life is great because you're learning about the real thing, but say I really want to like study a style of an artist, or I really want to study like how to draw monks or whatever. If I just research a whole bunch of monks, I want to find the best, most well executed versions of monks, and a lot of the elements that you would find around the monk genre, and I want to like draw those as much as I can. And I'd rather draw it's like this great quote Bruce Lee says, like, he doesn't fear the man who knows 1,000 punches, he fears the man who knows one punch, who's done one punch 10,000 times, because he's mastered that punch, and that punch will always knock everyone down. And I thought that was a fantastic quote, and I love applying that to adding to my visual library, because I'm like, I want the best art that I can find, and I want to take it and I want to internalize it. I want to draw it again and again and again, so I really understand it at a deep level, so I can almost close my eyes and draw the thing. and that's great. I mean, that's when you know it like really well. Actually be worth trying to do. Trying to close your eyes and like really see it in your mind and draw it. I don't know how it would work. I think it's called blind contour drawing. We did it in like second year of studying. It actually turned out such rad art. I must actually find some of that. But yeah, anyway, it gives you a deep sense of understanding, and that's the main thing. And it kind of when you study from real life, you start to evolve to see everything in a certain type of way. So it evolves your way of seeing the world, and it opens your eyes to what the world looks like as well, and how the world works as well. Because when you start seeing lighting, or you start seeing how these pieces of anatomy fit together, or you start seeing like the patterns or whatever, you start to like see like, wow, there's like so much going on actually. And it's really interesting, because then you're looking at anything and you kind of are like, sure, this looks like there's so much going on in one scene, and your job as an artist is to kind of simplify it in some way, shape or form, and interpret it in some way. So it just evolves your way of seeing the world. It becomes like, wow, everything becomes like insanely interesting. And when you start studying different areas of adding to your visual library, you can start to combine them together. And that's where the really interesting stuff is. Say, for example, like I study a lot of mechanical objects, which I do. A lot of robotic objects and mechanical things, and how they piece together and how they look and whatever. And then I go and study like animals and zebras and all these things. And then I'm like, okay, I now know both of them pretty well. And I want to try and combine them now, the understanding of both of them, to create something new and something interesting. And to be honest, like a lot of new stuff isn't creative, but the way you do it, that can be new. And when you understand something deeply, like your fundamental understanding is deep, the way you do something becomes more important as well, because you understand the thing, but it's how you do it. And that's obviously the style talk. I did a video on style a while back. And I think there's some good tips in trying to understand how you can do things. But understanding the real thing, like if I always say this, like if I had another day in the week, I would just use it to just do fundamentals. And I try, and whenever I have spare time, I'm always just doing fundamentals, because it always adds to the next piece that I do, that's for my portfolio or something. And this knowledge that you know, that you have understood and internalized, becomes part of your specific knowledge as an artist. And you can take this specific knowledge and you build your own kind of a brand with this specific knowledge that people want to see from you. And when you're adding to your visual library all the time, and you can see your visual library building, you become like a really powerful artist, and you'll be able to create great things because you're studying artists and you're studying real life and all of these things, and you're combining these things to create your specific knowledge. And this is what I have done, and I try to cultivate this and still do it all the time. And I'll probably continue to do it because I know I feel like I understand things a lot more when I can add them to my visual library. Cool, dude. Thank you for sticking through. And if you guys think this is relevant, feel free to share it with your friends. And yeah, I hit a subscribe if you guys like my artwork. You can just search Joshy J on Instagram or ArtStation for some more of my artwork. Otherwise, I will check you guys in the next one. Cheers.